It's a beautiful, tranquil day in the East Blue. The Red Hat Pirates ship sails at full mast towards Windmill Village. Shanks has just stolen an incredibly rare devil fruit from a world government ship and needs to lay low for a while in the weakest of the four seas. They have finally managed to shake off the Marines, and now the coast is clear and everything is at peace. Well, aside from one huge commotion right in front of them, because in the sea, flailing around in the water, is what appears to be a drowning person desperately clinging to a piece of driftwood. The Red Hat Pirates immediately pull him up, and it's clearly another fellow pirate with long dark hair, a red bandana, and an eyeliner that seems to defy the will of the sea by staying on perfectly at all times. And after spitting up enough water to drown a lesser man, the stranger introduces himself by saying, "This is the day that you will always remember as the day that you rescued Captain Jack Sparrow." Because that's right, it's a giant pirate crossover. We're doing something admittedly very unusual that I wanted to explore for quite a while now. So today we'll look at how things might have shaken out if the star of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise was somehow isekai'd into the world of One Piece. In other words, what would Jack's crew look like? What devil fruit would he eat? Does he have Conqueror's Haki? And of course, most importantly, could Jack Sparrow actually become the king of the pirates? Well, back in Windmill Village, between drinking the party bar dry together with the Red Hat Pirates, Jack Sparrow learns a little bit about his own situation. Because he's definitely not in Kansas or the Caribbean anymore, it turns out. After seeing a very hyperactive looking child become rubber, he actually learns the first time about devil fruits. And this stretchy kid, who of course we do know as Monkey D. Luffy, would start a very serious rivalry with Jack for the title of Pirate King. Because really, who's this kid to say that he's going to be Pirate King to the face of the great Captain Jack Sparrow? But most importantly, Shanks tells him about the legendary treasure of his former captain, the One Piece. Now, as you well know, One Piece is a story all about fighting for your own dreams, and the treasure of One Piece is the ultimate representation of wealth, fame, and power that a pirate could possibly seek. And so if Jack Sparrow was living in the One Piece world instead of the Disney world, what exactly would his dream actually be? Well, I think funnily enough, his goal actually wouldn't change all that much from his ambitions in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. If you think about it, Jack Sparrow is actually quite a lot like Luffy in several ways. One, both of them are basically mostly seeking freedom and adventure. Luffy doesn't want to be king of the pirates so that he can rule over everyone else on the seas with an iron fist. Far from it. The reason Luffy really wants to be Pirate King is because that is the person with the most freedom on all of the seas. In a nutshell, Luffy really just wants to do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, and he wants to spread that freedom to as many people as possible, at least as long as they're not using it to hurt his friends or deprive him of his food. And when you think about it, weirdly enough, Captain Jack Sparrow basically has the same exact goal. He just wants to live with as much freedom as possible and sail around having his own adventures. Therefore, even though their personalities might be quite different at first glance, Jack's goal is essentially identical to Luffy's, obviously making him a quite smooth fit into the story. Because he also would be searching for the One Piece not because he would want to use the title of Pirate King to rule over others, he'd just be having the time of his life on an adventure to find the world's greatest treasure. Now, if you've seen the movies, you'll probably know that the Pirates of the Caribbean movies also feature Jack Sparrow hunting for all sorts of legendary treasures and mythical artifacts, so the quest for the One Piece would basically be right up his own alley. And obviously, if there is a whole lot of gold stashed with whatever the actual One Piece turns out to be, well, that would just be a huge plus on top, because then Jack could buy a lifetime supply of rum as well, and the rum would never be gone again. Now, being a somewhat chaotic, neutral, kind of good type of character, Jack would appreciate Shanks letting him stay on the ship, but when offered a spot on his crew, well, he would probably decline. After all, the Red Force isn't big enough for two captains. And so Captain Jack Sparrow would of course need his very own ship and his own crew, but first he's going to need a little bit of a power-up. Now that he's been transported to the One Piece world where people can casually slash and punch entire battleships apart, like just being a regular dude just doesn't cut it anymore. Thankfully though, he knows just how to get exactly that. He has Shanks give him a lift to Loguetown, deciding to start his own journey into the Grand Line on his very own. But as soon as Shanks is gone though, Jack digs into his pocket and takes out an object that he's been keeping top secret, which is of course his magic compass, because thankfully when he got sucked into the One Piece world, he had his prized possession on him as well. Now for those uninitiated, this handy tool doesn't point north because instead it points straight to whatever the user most desires. And as it so happens right now, what Jack most desires in the One Piece world is a devil fruit. And he figured out that Shanks lifted the Gomu Gomu no Mi from the Marine, so where better to hunt for this edible treasure than at one of the largest marine strongholds in the East Blue. And just as he planned, the compass actually is pointing right towards the base. However, in order to actually sneak in, he will definitely need some sort of distraction, and it seemed that in the center of Loguetown there's an important monument, the stand where 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗏, the first pirate king, was actually executed. And so in typical Jack fashion, using a sword that he picked up from a conveniently located weapons store where Zoro actually later picks up his swords, Jack now proceeds with the delicate operation of hacking off one of the executioner stand's legs. Then he quickly runs over to the entrance of the Marine base, pointing towards the monument with a look of great concern in his eyes, and in his most convincing voice says, "Oh no, look, this thing is falling apart. You simply must do something about that, dear Marine soldier." And so of course an entire troop of Marines pours out of the base, and Jack uses that exact opportunity to sneak into the treasure room, where he does indeed find a chest with a devil fruit. However, unfortunately for him, someone's hand is already digging through the chest. He's been beaten to the occasion here by the person who will become his very first crewmate. Jack Sparrow is very confused because the person here robbing the Marines is wearing a Marine uniform. Now, he does seize his opportunity, says, "Stop right there. It is clear that you are not a Marine, but a pirate in disguise. Two can play at that game. You can see that I am dressed as a pirate, but in reality, as it turns out, I am actually a high-ranking Marine, and I have half a mind now to put you under arrest right now, right here, but I'm feeling a little bit generous today, so hand over that devil fruit and I will let you get off easy this time." But as the stranger turns around, his open Marine jacket actually reveals a giant X-shaped marking on his torso, because this person is none other than DS Drake, because he has actually decided to pay a visit to an old colleague who's also a Marine who's fed up with the system, and another possible sword member, Smoker. And really by pure coincidence, this is the day that DS Drake has started his long mission of going undercover as a pirate. And please don't add me on the fact that we have actually no confirmation that Drake and Smoker have technically never spoken, yet alone whether Drake showed up at Loguetown ever. We will be stretching around the timeline just a little bit so that Jack Sparrow's crew will be as fun and fitting to his character as possible. And so as Drake transforms into a fearsome Allosaurus, yeah, that's right, in case you didn't know, Oda has actually been very clear that Drake's transformation is an Allosaurus, not actually a T-Rex, Jack Sparrow finally realizes his own mistake. Actually, you know, I too am a pirate and a nefarious criminal, so perhaps we should actually just work together, you and I. The dinosaur steps closer and closer, its sharp teeth approaching Jack. My, what lovely teeth you have, Jack says. But thankfully, another voice just from behind him saves him just in time. So, you've turned into a traitor, says Captain Smoker, the head of the Loguetown Marine Base. In the next second, an epic battle breaks out between Smoke and Dino, while Jack is caught right in the middle. Thankfully, as always seems to happen, this is the perfect diversion that Jack needs to grab the devil fruit from the chest, and knowing that he can't keep up with all of these supernatural abilities going on around him, he takes a bite right away, deciding that he does need a power himself right then and right there to make it out alive. But of course, the real question is, what devil fruit would actually actually be the perfect one for Jack Sparrow, because there were a few ideas that I had about this. Like, at first I thought the rum fruit seems like a pretty great choice. I mean, it would function basically much like more specific version of Vasco Shot's alcohol fruit. Basically a Vasco Shot that exclusively makes and consumes Mai Tais and mojitos. Then again, Brooks Revive fruit also could be a very good candidate, since the Pirates of the Caribbean movies often deal with the concept of immortality, such of course as the cursed coins in the very first film or the Fountain of Youth in On Stranger Tides. Then of course a Time fruit to go along with Jack's Timekeeper watch might also be fitting too, but it might just be a little bit too broken to give a character who's already a masterful swordsman and strategist also the power to literally stop time. Something like a compass fruit was on the table as well, of course, but I did decide to be generous and just let him bring his own magical compass from the Disneyverse over while he's sick out here. And really none of these fruits really quite stack up to what ended up being the perfect fit in my opinion. Because while X-Drake and Smoker are dueling it out, Jack takes a bite of the mysterious fruit and then transforms into a tiny little bird who's able to fly out the window and straight out of danger. Think about it, it's the perfect fruit for anyone who really wants to be free, and who's more free than a bird flying through the sky? It also helps him enact his favorite go-to strategy, escaping. Like he says, if you run away today, you live to run another day. And so Jack Sparrow's perfect devil fruit, I think, is none other than the Tori Tori no Mi model Sparrow. Because I mean, come on, it's right there in the name. So, after the battle winds down and X-Drake makes his dramatic escape, Jack Sparrow, in full Sparrow mode, trails him and hitches a ride on his ship. After all, who's gonna notice a tiny little bird stowing away on that same ship? And once leaving the harbor, Jack does transform back into his human form, figuring that this ship isn't quite going to be strong enough for a whole Allosaurus to be stomping around on it. And so instead, he does decide to take the risk and try to negotiate, and finally convinces the ex-Marine to actually work together. You see, X-Drake is basically a perfect fit for his first crewmate. After all, one of Jack's most reliable crewmates ever throughout the series is the character Joshua Gibbs, who once was actually a member of the Royal Navy, but then defected and became a pirate after befriending Jack, later becoming his first mate. And so, since Drake is the most notable Marine turned pirate character, at least I guess until Aokiji leaves the Marines later on, he does make the perfect first crewmate for Jack Sparrow in One Piece, who has now commandeered the Allosaurus' ship, declared Drake his first mate, all the while being blissfully unaware that his new crewmate is still technically and secretly a Marine. Sounds pretty Jack Sparrow if you ask me. But two men of course do not make a full pirate crew, so as Jack Sparrow sails into the Grand Line, who actually else will fill out his crew? And so let's look at Pirates of the Caribbean once more for a little bit more inspiration. For one, Elizabeth Swann is originally a member of the nobility who goes along with Jack and ends up becoming a pirate in her very own right. And so since Jack and Drake are already in the early parts of the Grand Line, maybe they end up befriending Princess Vivi, who is still undercover as a member of Baroque Works at that time as well. Now, at first it might seem like Jack wouldn't be able to defeat an opponent like Crocodile, because Crocodile could just use his sand fruit to dry out Jack, making him look a whole lot like one of the undead from his own film franchise. However, after accidentally tripping and spilling a bottle of his rum on the warlord, first cursing and then lighting said rum on fire, he actually makes a brand new crocodile glass statue. Now, Vivi, of course, kind of like with the Straw Hats, initially wants to stay behind in her kingdom. This time though, Cobra actually decides he's got things covered for the next couple of years, and Vivi should just go ahead and have some fun while she is still young. That kind of rhymed for no reason, but there, we've now got our princess nobility turned pirates. But up next, we do need a duo of silly guys, because this is a very important component in the Pirates of the Caribbean formula as well. In the series, we do have Pintel and Ragetti. They're these two silly guys here who hang out and basically just act dumb together. The Navy has Murtaugh and Mulrow. They are also a pair of two dumb comic relief guys, and who in One Piece then could actually fulfill our need for a pair of silly guys as well. And there's actually not that many. I mean, there is Kelly and Bobby Funk, but thanks to the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 fruit, they're more like one really creepy kind of weird guy. Then there's Abdullah and Jeet, but they barely have any screen time like ever, and I'm not planning on giving them any more, honestly. Yeah, now, I think the perfect pair really will be found right in the first half of the Grand Line in Jaya with Masida and Shoujo of the Saruyama Alliance. In case you don't know, the two salvage brothers who look a whole lot like monkeys for some reason. Now, as treasure hunters, they're basically perfect for finding underwater treasure, something that Jack is very interested in and can no longer do now that he's actually eaten a devil fruit himself. And of course, as a bonus, both of them do look kind of like monkeys, which is a very intentional reference to Hector Barbosa's little monkey pal here, who's also called Jack. And additionally, I guess they're pretty handy at also fixing up a ship. Next up, skipping the Sky Islands and sailing just straight ahead, Jack then encounters the most wicked and cruel pirate in the entire series, Foxy the Silver Fox. And of course, Foxy also challenges him to a Davy backfight, explaining its connections to the legendary pirate Davy Jones. To which Jack, of course, can only say, "Oh, you also know Davy Jones? Not a big fan of him myself, really, I have to say." And Jack also isn't a real fan of being chosen for the combat round, but since his expertise is in running anyways, he'd be able to sidestep every slow beam with pretty much ease and take out Foxy, earning his ship a brand new swabby. And slowly but steadily, the Sparrow ship is getting a little bit crowded, so it's really time to head next to Water 7 for a new one. Once on the island, Jack saunters up to the Galilea company, showing them a crude drawing that he's tried to make of the Black Pearl and asked, "Would you be able to make something exactly like this?" And at this point in time, still very much alive Tom the shipwright would happily agree, and Jack asked the blue-haired kid hanging around as well if he would like to be a pirate one day, but gets turned down just like Odin and Roger did, and instead turns to a different potential shipwright for his crew. And so while they're waiting on the construction of the Black Pearl, he ends up befriending Polly over a round of Liar's Dice and brings him along as well, because it's really only fair to give Polly a spot on the crew after he got rejected for Frankie, after so many people thought that he was gonna be a Straw Hat for sure. And after all, like half of the action sequences in Pirates of the Caribbean are just like guys swinging around on ropes, so who better to join this crew than the guy who literally keeps a lasso on him 24/7. And so now, thanks to Tom, Jack Sparrow finally has his perfect ship, the Black Pearl, one of the fastest ships now in the One Piece world, rivaling even Roger's ship, the Oro Jackson. The Black Pearl, one of the fastest ships now in the One Piece world, rivaling even Roger's ship, the Oro Jackson. And at this point, Jack thinks that he's finally ready to head for the One Piece. Thanks to his magical compass, he has a huge advantage above everyone else and doesn't technically even need any of the road poneglyphs. The compass just points straight to Laugh Tale. And so the Black Pearl starts to set sail and runs straight into Thriller Bark. I mean, that was kind of in the way here, I guess. And here in the fog, he meets Brooke, and missing all of the undead skeletons back in the Pirates of the Caribbean world, he ends up recruiting the skeletal musician for his very own crew. But before he can take Brooke with him, I guess he first needs to get his shadow back from Moria. And as we know, the biggest obstacle on Thriller Bark isn't actually Moria himself though, it's the Samurai zombie, the Yuma, who actually ends up challenging Jack to a duel. And thankfully for him, running away isn't actually the only thing that Jack is pretty good at. As it turns out, he's actually also a pretty skilled swordsman, but it quickly becomes clear though that he's still outclassed by this zombie. You know what, Jack says, the true test of a swordsman actually isn't just combat, because nowadays the greatest swordsmen out there are the ones who are actually the strongest swimmers. So I do challenge you, Ryuma, to a race across that stretch of sea down there. Now, of course, not wanting to be outclassed outplayed here, the 𝗏𝗏 does end up agreeing to this alternate challenge and swims. The salt in the water immediately forces out his shadow and allows Jack to flee with the national treasure of Wano, Shusui, and allowing the shadow to return to Brook without ever having to face Moria or Urs. In other words, he just leaves before any more encounters with other warlords or zombies become necessary and heads straight onward towards 𝗝𝗄𝗎𝗪 archipelago. Because of course, if Jack wants to make it into the new world, he will need to get his ship coded. And so he gets to chatting and also drinking and gambling with an old man named Rayleigh. Now Jack talks about how he's in search for the One Piece, and Rayleigh mentions that he's actually already found it. And when the subject of Shanks comes up, there's yet another common connection that the two really hit it off on. And while they're in the middle of partying and drinking really hard, Shaggy comes out to say hello as well, and Rayleigh says, oh yeah, this is Shaggy, she's actually from Amazon Lily, the island of only women. And at that exact moment, the needle of Jack's compass swings immediately from Loftail straight to Amazon Lily with incredible force. An island of women, you say, eh? Rayleigh has no time to reply because Jack has already sprinted away with tremendous speed back to the ship to set sail immediately for Amazon Lily. While his ship is waiting off the shore, using his sparrow form, he's able to infiltrate the island and get close enough to Boa Hancock. Now, due to his adventurous and free spirit being quite similar to Luffy's, Hancock doesn't really mind him, though she's not head over heels like she is for Luffy here, and he just opens the conversation with a line from the movie, saying, "My tremendous intuitive sense of the female creature informs me that you are troubled." And so after much convincing and avoiding many arrows and many snake bites, he's actually getting the warlord to join his crew as well. After all, in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, Elizabeth Swann eventually earns the title of Pirate Empress, and therefore it's only fitting for Jack Sparrow's One Piece crew to feature the literal Pirate Empress as well. But getting back on track here, next the Sparrow Pirates finally sail beneath the sea to Fishman Island. At the entrance here, they're faced with the giant kraken, Tsurume. However, all that Jack can say here is, you're not that scary because I've actually seen way worse krakens where I'm from. And during their stay on Fishman Island, he actually finally encounters fishmen, and they look very familiar, it turns out. He also hears rumors about the captain of the Flying Dutchman and thinks, oh god, Davy Jones is in this world as well? Not that guy again, but thankfully it's not the extremely evil and cursed Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean after all, it's just 𝗏𝗏𝗥𝗏𝗏, the next crew member recruited into the Sparrow Pirates after Jack teaches him that throwing projectiles is not a very emotionally mature way to ask for a woman's hand in marriage. Oh, it's not. I should write that down. Anyway, this means that the final makeup of Jack Sparrow's crew is an absolutely wild group of seemingly random characters who all have an actual tie-in to the Pirates of the Caribbean. X-Drake, Princess Vivi, Mashida, Shoju, Foxy the Silver Fox, Polly, Brook, Boa Hancock, and 𝗏𝗏𝗥𝗏𝗏. Yeah, wow, with a supernova, a straw hat, a warlord, and some literal royalty, does Jack Sparrow actually maybe stand a chance at finding the One Piece and becoming Pirate King? And speaking about how successful he is as a pirate and how formidable his crew has become, what would his bounty actually be? Well, turns out there's actually a really good starting point that we can take for this exactly, and that's because he has an existing bounty within Pirates of the Caribbean, it turns out. Now, in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, Jack Sparrow's bounty is actually precisely 10,000 guineas. A guinea is a coin that used to be the largest denomination of British currency until the introduction of the pound. Now, around 10,000 British pounds doesn't sound like that much at first, but since the Pirates of the Caribbean movies takes place sometimes around the year 1720, 1730, during the real world's golden age of piracy, we do need to drastically adjust this for inflation. Now, since a guinea is 8.3 grams of pure 22 karat gold, to find out the value today, I'm actually just going to be looking at the value of gold itself today instead of its relation to the pound at the time here, because the metal they're made of is actually worth far more than the price as which they were denominated at that point. And so 8.3 grams of gold is actually worth approximately $400 today. 400 multiplied by 10,000 means that Jack is looking at a bounty worth of $4 million today. And since One Piece berries are roughly equivalent to Japanese yen, if we convert that, it would put Jack's bounty at 617,772,000 berries. Now, as far as a One Piece bounty goes, this is actually nothing to laugh at. Nowadays, One Piece fans are used to bounties exceeding 1 billion berries. However, keep in mind that Jack's bounty being over 600 million is actually still pretty insane for a first bounty. For comparison, even after Dressrosa, when Luffy had toppled 3 warlords, punched a celestial dragon, declared war on the world government, and participated in the war at Marineford, his bounty was still only 500 million berries. Not only that, but Sabo's current bounty, the second in command of the Revolutionary Army, is 602 million, which would even put Jack Sparrow above the second in command of Dragon. And I mean, Sabo is literally the person right under the most wanted man in the entire world. So something tells me that Sabo might be getting a bounty increase soon. I don't know why that could be, but as Captain Jack Sparrow sails the Black Pearl through the new world, his bounty will most likely grow much bigger, of course. Now again, thanks to his magical compass, he's just able to bypass the road poneglyphs and has a huge advantage for finding the One Piece. He has no need to actually infiltrate any of the Yonko territories directly in order to get their etchings, and can basically cheat his way to Laugh Tale if he wants to. However, before he actually goes to claim the One Piece, he just can't resist the allure of one very special location, of course, Pirate Island. After all, missing the island of Tortuga, the pirate island from his very own universe, he goes to check it out, and when he encounters the former member of the Rocks Pirates, 𝗏𝗏𝗄, just like Blackbeard did, he ends up toppling this pirate and takes over Hachinosu as his very own. In other words, the Sparrow Pirates have now claimed Pirate Island as their very own home turf in the New World. And so after establishing it, the government officially names Jack Sparrow as the 5th Emperor of the Sea, much to the shock and confusion of Kaido, Big Mom Shanks, and Whitebeard, who have actually at this point hardly even ever heard of this dude. But now, as the Sparrow Pirates are taking a break and partying it up on the new territory of Pirate Island, they do get their very own visitor now, who would like to take the island for himself as well, Marshal D. Teach, who introduces himself to Jack Sparrow as Blackbeard. Now, Jack can of course only say, "Hi, you look different than I remember," before then trying to negotiate his way around actually having to fight here. Now, as the rest of the crew is actually already busy fighting the rest of the Blackbeard pirates, it's kind of clear that this time there's actually no escaping. Thankfully though, his crewmate Boa Hancock has been able at this point to teach Jack all about Haki. Now, as a master swordsman and fighter, he actually has honed his armament Haki quite a lot. And using his great senses of perception and ability to keep awareness of a situation, he unlocked his observation Haki as well. And as the leader of a great crew and ship destined to find the One Piece, of course Jack Sparrow would have unlocked Conqueror's Haki as well. And so the two ambitious pirate captains clash, with Blackbeard trying to absorb Jack within the darkness. Using his Sparrow transformation though, he's able to evade the black hole and get in for some close combat. As Blackbeard does make contact though, his darkness fruit does undo Jack's transformation, but it turns out that this was actually all part of Jack's plan to get within striking distance. Using 𝗏𝗏𝗄, the katana that he stole from Thriller Bark, he slashes Blackbeard, who, much in the same style as Jack, decides at this point to make a tactical retreat. More importantly though, meanwhile, all the rest of the Sparrow Pirates are in absolute shock and disbelief at the fact that apparently Jack has actually been strong this entire time and can actually fight with the top tiers when push comes to shove, and he doesn't immediately decide to run away. And yet, even after defeating Blackbeard here, Jack and the Sparrow Pirates still have one last challenge before they finally find the One Piece. Because when they finally arrive at Laugh Tale, waiting for them is none other than the man who first introduced him to the One Piece world in the first place, Red Hair Shanks. Now, to be fair, the red-haired emperor here always thought it was gonna be Luffy who would be destined to challenge him for the One Piece and the title of King of of Pirates, but Jack speedran the entire One Piece universe, so it had to come to exactly this. The two men lock eyes, the sky splits, and they draw their swords and drop them to the floor, and instead, of course, pull out a couple of bottles of rum and start the party of the century. After all, what's the title of King of Pirates among friends? Like Jack Sparrow said himself, not all treasure is silver and gold, mate. And so they just decide to split the golden treasure among both crews and party it up, and then they decide that they can just leave uncovering the Void Century and solving all that problem with the world flooding to Luffy in a couple of years later, after all. However, after becoming an emperor and reaching Laugh Tale, the government does decide to bump up Jack's bounty a bit, giving him a solid 5 billion berries, and he's come a very long way since the Disneyverse indeed. Honestly, it's pretty incredible to think that Jack Sparrow might actually be able to reach Laugh Tale despite not being from the One Piece universe to begin with, but what about all the existing characters in One Piece that could claim it if they really wanted to? Like, Shanks has now made it a mission for himself to achieve the One Piece as the final saga is fully on the swing, but there's actually another super powerful character as well who could claim the treasure for himself, possibly Shanks' rival, 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗎 Mihawk. I mean, could the world's greatest swordsman actually become the Pirate King if he really tried? Lucky for you, you can find out in this video right here. Thanks so much for watching. I know this one was very different, but if you enjoyed it, let me know, and I'm more than happy to do more of these. Like, give me ideas, and maybe we can throw another character from a different universe into One Piece as well. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.